What the heck is going on with all of these New Agers, all of these witches, leaving that stuff behind and following Jesus instead? A lot of people might feel like this is a trend, or this is some sort of fad, or that people are doing it for clout. But the thing is that when people leave the New Age to follow Jesus, they are completely bombarded with hate comments, hate mail. They lose followers, they lose money, they lose their businesses, they lose everything, they lose friends to follow Christ. So it can't just be because they're trying to hop on the latest trend and get a bunch of clout on social media, because quite literally the opposite often happens when people have a platform and are in the New Age and then they switch to following Jesus and then they lose everything. And then at the same time people are saying that it's for clout or something, but that honestly doesn't make any sense, because you can see that their followers hate it and they often lose all of their followers, they lose their platform, they lose everything. And so what is really going on? Well, the truth of the matter is that Jesus is not just a fad. He's not just a trend. He's been around for 2,000 years, going strong, and he's going to continue to touch people's lives, regardless of how much it might trigger you. One of the most common pushbacks that people get when they leave the New Age to follow Jesus is people saying, oh, well, you must have not been strong enough. You weren't actually rooted in your path. You didn't actually look deep within enough. You didn't get rooted enough in the modalities that you were doing. And so you obviously fell away because you were so ungrounded. And so the constructs of religion, the religious dogma must be actually very good for you because you're so ungrounded and you're flying all over the place. So this must be some sort of like psychological response to your inability to ground in these other practices. A lot of the times people will say stuff like, if you don't understand something, then don't demonize it. Simultaneously, though, they are doing the exact same thing to Christianity. The people who left the New Age to follow Jesus, these are usually people, not all of them maybe, but a lot of the people who leave the New Age to follow Jesus were doing it for upwards of, 8 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, sometimes 30 years, sometimes even more, deeply devoted to the path of witchcraft and the path of New Age. However, people will still tell them, hey, you just didn't go deep enough. You just don't really understand this stuff, so don't go and demonize something that you don't understand. But they clearly did understand it. They were deeply devoted to it for many, many years, if not most of their life, they were devoted to it. And so is it really true that they don't understand it? Or is it possible that the people who are getting triggered, who don't understand leaving the New Age to follow Jesus, are demonizing that path? They're demonizing Christianity. They're demonizing leaving those things behind to follow Christ and Christ alone. And if you're one of those people, you might be saying, oh, well, I was raised in the church. I know all about Christianity. I know that it's religious dogma and it's all just the patriarchy and all of this. I was raised up in it, so I know all about it. But does a child who gets raised in a certain spiritual path actually know the implications of what it really means? Do they actually, with their free will, devotionally follow that path? Or is it something that they're just kind of culturally enforced into without any real understanding of what it means, without their free will actually being involved in it? Because if that's the case for you, you probably don't actually know what Christianity really is. You probably don't actually know the depth of what it means to follow Jesus and how much freedom can actually be found in that path. And if you were raised and kind of forced into Christianity from a child, I can understand why you would think that it's just religious dogma and oppression and fear. Because frankly, there's a lot of crappy churches out there who don't preach the true gospel, who don't actually teach Jesus, and you didn't actually get the opportunity to, with your free will, find a relationship with Christ through a genuine means of seeking for it. You were just kind of forced to go to church every Sunday and you hated it, and now you think you know everything about Christianity. But the people who leave the New Age to follow Jesus, they were deeply devoted, genuinely seeking through their free will all of those different paths. They were, they did the different plant medicines, they sat in rituals, they did the inner work, they did all of the things very, very deeply. Some of them even taught other people to do it, like I myself did as well when I was in the New Age. These people, they're deeply devoted. They have a deep understanding of this path, and now they're saying that Jesus is actually the one that brought them freedom. And that might be hard to reconcile if you don't actually understand what Christianity is, and you think that it's the same thing as being forced to go to church every Sunday when you were 8 years old, and assuming that now you know everything about Christianity. I'm sorry, but you probably don't. So rather than belittling people for finding the truth and finding true freedom and healing, rather than demonizing something that you don't understand, try and be open-minded to what's happening. Try and open your heart to a new possibility. If you are spiritually seeking, you probably value it to yourself to be open-minded and to be open to all sorts of different spiritual paths. However, why is it that you are so close-minded and you have such a closed heart to the idea of people who leave the New Age to follow Jesus? They were on this path too, just as much as you were, and this is what they found to be the truth. This is what they found to be healing for them. And there are, at this point, thousands of people who have had this experience. Literally billions of people have had this experience over the last 2,000 years, so why not look into it? Why not look into it with a genuine heart and with open-mindedness and be willing to be wrong? Be willing to look for the truth, regardless of how much it triggers you, no matter how much it triggers your beliefs about Christianity or your traumas or your past experiences, regardless of how much it pushes up against your personal biases and belief systems. You are probably someone who always values it to yourself to challenge your limiting beliefs, to be open to being wrong about something. So isn't it possible that you could be wrong about this? Just think about that. Just consider it with an open mind, because if you're really looking for the truth, be willing to look for it in all of the places, regardless of if it makes you uncomfortable. That is what will truly set you free in the end.